Maya worked alone in a fire lookout tower for 3 summers. The nearest occupied tower was more than 30 kilometers away. Across the valley stood another lookout known as Black Ridge. It had been abandoned after lightning damaged its electrical system 15 years earlier. One evening, during heavy rain, Maya saw a light inside it. The light flashed 3 times, paused, and flashed twice. It was the emergency signal used by rangers who needed immediate assistance. Maya contacted dispatch. They confirmed that nobody had been assigned to Black Ridge and advised her to observe it until morning. Through binoculars, Maya saw a person inside the tower. The figure wore a ranger uniform and held a signal lamp. It pointed toward the forest beneath Maya's tower. Her radio activated. A distorted voice said, "Don't look across the valley. Look below you." Maya switched on the exterior floodlight. A flashlight was moving through the trees below. She locked the tower door. For the next hour, the distant ranger continued signaling. Eventually, Maya translated the flashes. "Someone is climbing your stairs." Maya looked through the floor window. The metal staircase was empty. Then she heard one step beneath her, followed by another. The footsteps slowly climbed toward the cabin. Maya held the door closed until sunrise. When daylight returned, the footsteps stopped. Black Ridge appeared empty again. Maya hiked there with another ranger that afternoon. The cabin door was still locked from the outside. Inside, dust covered almost everything, but a mug on the desk was warm. A map of the valley had been marked around Maya's tower. Beside it was a recent photograph of Maya watching through her binoculars. They searched the tower but found nobody. Before leaving, Maya looked through the abandoned tower's binoculars toward her own station. Someone was standing inside it. The figure looked like Maya. Same uniform, same hair, same binoculars. It raised a signal lamp, 3 flashes, a pause, 2 flashes. Maya never returned to her tower. The following ranger reported no unusual activity during his first week. On his 8th night, dispatch received an emergency transmission. The ranger said someone was signaling from Black Ridge. Then a second voice entered the transmission. It sounded exactly like him. It said, "Don't look across the valley." Ranger Paul found a young hiker at the North Creek trailhead during heavy fog. The hiker said his name was Adam. He claimed his friend had disappeared while they were camping. Paul brought him inside the ranger station and checked the trail cameras. The footage showed Adam and another man entering the forest 3 days earlier. Neither had been recorded leaving. Paul organized a search. Several kilometers down the trail, he found an abandoned campsite. 2 red jackets lay beside the fire. 2 identical backpacks stood beneath a tree. Both contained the same personal belongings. Both contained identification belonging to Adam. 2 sets of matching footprints led away from the camp in opposite directions. Paul returned to the station. Adam was still waiting inside. When Paul showed him photographs of the campsite, Adam became quiet. Then he asked, "Which direction did the other one go?" Before Paul could answer, someone knocked on the station door. Another man stood outside. He had Adam's face. He wore the same red jacket and carried the same black backpack. The second Adam insisted he had only entered the forest that morning. He had never seen Paul before. The first Adam accused the second of following him. Paul separated them and contacted the police. While waiting, he checked the live trail cameras. A third Adam was walking toward the station from behind the building. Paul looked outside. Nobody was there. When he turned back, both hikers had disappeared from the room. The front door was still locked. That night, Paul saw 2 figures standing at the forest edge. Both wore red jackets. They remained there until morning. Police searched the area but found nothing. Paul resigned several weeks later. Before leaving, he checked the archived footage one final time. The original recording no longer showed 2 hikers entering the forest. It showed 3: Adam, his friend, and Paul himself. Paul was walking several steps behind them in his ranger uniform. The recording had been made 3 days before he first met Adam. At the end of the footage, Paul stopped and looked directly into the trail camera. Then he raised one finger to his lips. Campground 9 had been closed since 1984. A flash flood destroyed the access bridge and killed several campers. The site was never reopened. Ranger Elise began receiving reports of campfires behind its locked entrance. She assumed teenagers had found another route into the site. One night, she drove there. Beyond the gate, at least 12 campfires were burning. Old canvas tents stood between the abandoned cabins. Elise entered on foot. Every campsite looked recently occupied. Food cooked over the fires. Sleeping bags were open. Children's toys lay in the mud, but no people were present. Inside the abandoned office, an old radio was broadcasting through static. A male voice repeatedly said, "The bridge is gone. We can't get out." Elise found a photograph of a family who had died during the 1984 flood. The same photograph covered an entire wall. One newer picture showed Elise standing outside the gate that night. Heavy rain began. When Elise attempted to leave, she discovered that the old bridge had collapsed again. A group of campers stood on the opposite side. Adults and children wearing wet clothing from the 1980s watched her silently. None called for help. One man pointed behind her. Every campsite was now occupied. Dozens of people sat around the fires, facing Elise. She ran back to her vehicle and locked the doors. Something began striking the windows. Muddy handprints appeared across the glass. Just before sunrise, everything stopped. The campground was empty again. Elise drove away when emergency workers repaired the road. She later learned that the number of people she saw matched the original campground register, except for one additional camper. Her own name had been added at the bottom. Several months later, Elise returned during daylight. The site was empty. As she prepared to leave, she looked into the rearview mirror. The family from the photograph was sitting across her back seat. The father leaned forward and whispered, "The bridge is gone again." Elise looked ahead. The road outside the windshield now ended at a flooded ravine. Behind her, campfires began appearing between the trees.